Hi there, guys, and we're back. Woo! Jamie and the bird for another episode. I don't know where we're going to start with this one because Jamie's come up with an idea, and I'm going to wing it.
To be fair, I'm still just going to wing it myself, even though it's my idea. But I think we know that's the hallmark of this channel now. We just see what happens, really. And yeah, if it's good, it's good. If it's not, then we won't post this video. So we're okay.
Let me just move the camera a bit. So what basically where I think this has come from is Jamie is now really, really old.
Really old.
Really old. Like he's turned 40.
Yeah.
And within that, there are some lessons that he's just not learned along the way, but he's going to tell us.
Pick your friends.
Lessons he's not learnt along the way, but he just wants to talk about being old. So, yeah. Jamie, excessive hair growth in your ears and your nose. Why is this necessary? Discuss.
Yeah, that is a very good point. That is an evolutionary response to being more vulnerable to cold and flu viruses as you get older. Therefore, your nose and ear hair compensate for it.
Right, okay. So that's why as you get older, you end up looking more like the BFG, basically.
Exactly right, yeah.
Right, okay. Which you've just made up on the spot, which is
completely just made up on the spot. How plausible does that actually sound like it could be?
The thing is, that was actually believable.
And that's today's life lesson at 40, guys. You can laugh and get away with it because you know how to laugh.
So, but why are we here, Jamie?
Right, so I sat down, I wrote a list of things that I wish I'd known when I was younger. That,
don't eat yellow snow.
But yeah, exactly, that I now know at age 40, okay? But in a more serious context, let's face it, you and I, we are terrible at not saying why people should listen to us, apart from the fact that we're quite funny and we wing it. But the truth is, we've done a lot of good things over the years as well. We've probably done a lot of improvement on ourselves, and we've helped a lot of people in different contexts along the way.
Yeah.
That's fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the key things that I've learned over the last, well, probably more 10 years, from being honest, that I wish I had known and which I wish I could drill into people's heads. And guess what? Every parent says it, and I reckon you're going to say it to your son at some point very soon as well.
You're a little shit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Why are you here? Why did you come into my
Get out there and go and earn me some money. Get back in the factory.
Pay back what you owe. No, and that is, do you remember our parents saying this to us when we were young, but you never really twig it? Life isn't fair.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, every time. Yeah, oh my God, that's so unfair. Life isn't fair.
Life isn't fair. Yeah, it's like they just throw it back at you as like a riposte to everything, don't they? Life isn't fair. Life isn't fair. But the thing is, when you're a kid, you don't really take that on board, do you? You just think, well, I don't like you, Dad, or I don't like you, Mum, because you haven't given me what I wanted, or whatever.
Yeah. But it's not exactly teeing you up with the most positive outlook on life, is it? So, you're going to grow up, and it's going to be shit anyway. So yeah.
but here's the thing. That is true. Whether that or not that is unpleasant, that is actually true. Like you said, not necessarily life is shit, but life is unfair. There was a great quote I heard the other day, and it was not quote such. The guy, it was an interview I was watching, and the guy said something like, "It's people who get really who moan about life all the time, who moan about it all the time, is a bit like arguing with physics." Okay, it's like pointing at the sun and going, "You shouldn't be there. You should be there," because your effort to control it is about the same either way. You can't move the sun, and you can't change what's actually happened, right? And this is the problem that we've got now. And this is something that, again, I wish I could go back and teach my younger self, but I think it's something that is having a impact, maybe more now than it has before, maybe because people have changed, maybe society's changed, what I don't know. But people try and change the world rather than they try and change themselves to fit the world.
Yeah, and that really, that's not that. It's easier to change yourself than it is anything else, and go in what's the word? Internally and look at what's going on. Oh, okay, this has gone on. Well, what have I done to cause that? And sometimes that's actually not sometimes. That is always a difficult question to answer, because if something's gone wrong and it's your fault, or you make it your fault, that's a really difficult question. But then that's where you grow. But then a lot of people don't do that because they don't like it coming back on themselves. No,
absolutely. And I don't know if it's getting worse, as I said. I think maybe, they do say generations change, and we know parenting styles change, and we certainly know society changes. But whether it's tied in with the whole kind of lack of personal responsibility or whatever, I don't know. but there is certainly a movement, I would say, definitely over the last 7-8 years, maybe more than that, where, like we say, people look to blame externally before they look internally, first of all. But and here's the other thing, you know, do you remember like the old, and it's not necessarily all good or all bad, but do you remember the old stiff upper lip, the British mentality that we talk about all the time? That came with a lot of problems because people never used to confront their demons. They just used to suffer all the time. Now the pendulum swung quite far the other way, whereas things aren't perfect, things aren't right, therefore I'm going to throw my toys out the pram quite a lot. I'm going to blame society, the government, my parents, people around me, my boss, you know, whatever it is. And the blame is there. And then they kind of expect...
This is your favourite, victim mentality. This is what Jamie loves. Oh, woe is me. The world's against me. It's the world's fault, not my fault. Jamie loves that. That's one of his... It's one of the ways that he runs his life, actually. He's a massive victim.
I was going to say, I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking, I think we need to explain exactly what you mean by that, which is I am the complete opposite of that victim mentality, and I despise it in other people. I don't mean that to sound cruel. I don't mean it to sound vicious, because there are plenty of people that have been dealt a really horrible hand. They're being dealt a horrible hand every day, and as a society and as a people, we should work towards making life as good as it can be for everyone. That is what we should be doing.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to help people who need help. We need to give people the best opportunity in life. But here's the problem.
The thing is that you need to help people who need help. Some people can't be helped because they don't want to be helped. They say they want help, but when help means change, they refuse to take it on board. So it's, you know, it's quite difficult. It's the old, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that's exactly it. But I think where we are now is we've got a real problem in that, going back to the point I made earlier, some, not all, definitely not all, but some people have got this idea in their head that, you know, change the world rather than adapt to it. Okay, and there is a nobility in that, because you do want to change the world to make it better for everybody. You want it to make it a nicer place to live. But the truth is, change like that takes years or decades or centuries.
Yeah.
But if you spend your entire life complaining about the world because it is a way that you don't want it to be, whether that's affecting you personally or affecting others, you're not actually going to be able to influence it enough for it to make a concrete difference in your life, right?
But I think what you're talking about there's two different sort of types that we're talking about here. There's someone that wants to change the world and go and save the orangutans and save the rainforest and change the world for the better, maybe change something in government or something like that and change the world for the better. And then there's blaming the world for your problems. So that's the two. There's the thing that I want to change. The world needs to change. If this happens, then I'll do that. If this happens, then I'll do this. It's not if this, it's I need to do this to make it
solve that problem, to solve that problem. Exactly.
And that's when this happens, I'll do that. When that happens, and that's where the problem comes in, and it's blaming everyone else for it. If you want to change the world and change the way that things are, fantastic. It's a positive thing.
We need people like that. You know, you need social justice advocates. You need people that care enough to want to go and make demonstrable change in the world. Absolutely. And we should empower those people. We should support them. Here's the thing, as an individual, imagine this is what's happened. This is where the whole kind of keyboard warrior thing has come from. If you're sitting there day in, day out, and you're spending hours and hours and hours complaining and moaning and not accepting and not thriving or surviving in this world because the world is not how you want it to be right now, all you're doing is you are wasting your time. It's like going into a blizzard and going, it's really effing cold out here, and rather than starting a fire and putting a jacket on, you just sit there moaning about how cold it actually is.
I've actually got a good one. Confucius said, don't moan about the snow on your neighbour's doorstep when you haven't swept your own.
That's absolutely right.
There's some bits in there, you know.
There are, absolutely. And I think we have to be really. By the way, what you said was excellent about the two types, and I think that's a really good distinction. We need people to change the world, but ultimately, what we need is people to be able to survive and thrive in the world as it is as well. And that's the second bit is where it's gone really wrong. If we look at, I think you and I spoke about this before, certainly in a professional context. Trying to bring people, and I have friends that own businesses. I've been in senior positions within companies as well, and the recurring theme, the common theme now is it's very hard to get people to grow, to stay and grow within a business and expand the business, because people leave after 6 months, they leave after 9 months because it's too much like hard work, it's not exactly how they want it to be, etc., etc. And there's obviously going to be companies where that is true, where they're not a good environment, but people are going into businesses or going into the working world and going, for example, well, this isn't how I thought it would be. This isn't. I don't have decision-making control.
Do you think? You remember when we were younger, and my mum used to say to me, "Oh, what do you want to do when you get older?" And I just said, "Make money." That was all I had. I just wanted to make money, and she was like, "Oh, you think it's just gonna land in your lap?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I then realised as I got older that it wasn't, and I had to work for it. But do you not think in this day and age that when people are seeing that a YouTuber is worth $200 million, or you're looking through Instagram and everyone's got all of this stuff and just makes everything look so easy. That with the kids that are coming through these days, they're being brainwashed. So when they're actually going out there and they go, hang about, he's earning 200 million and you're going to pay me 25 grand a year and you expect me to do 8 hours. What? And there's that kind of thing that's coming through, and it does kind of make sense. Like the grafters and the old school, like you look at our grandparents and people like that just non-stop. They didn't care. They weren't even earning a great wage necessarily, but they were just kept on hammering at it. And I was watching the guy from Gymshark, the guy that's just got the billionaire. The billionaire. I was watching him yesterday on the True Geordie podcast, and he's 26 years old, but the work ethic on that guy is unbelievable. I mean, he's literally from 18 years old just had one vision, and he said, I've literally dragged it at the beginning from kicking and screaming to drag the brand where I wanted it to go. But now he's at $1 billion, or he's valued at $1 billion. He's still going. And he said, one of the worries for me was I was going to hit that and then I was going to lose the drive. But he was like, we're still miles away from where we need to be. And that, I think, is such a, I say it's going to quite controversial, but quite an unusual attitude for younger people now, I think.
I think it's unusual for a lot of people. I mean,
for a lot of people. The stuff that he talks about, it's taken me years to kind of work out in my head, and he's just got it. He's just
that's exactly what I was going to say, because I think there are plenty of people, in our age bracket as well. Like I'd put myself among it, where for a long time the work ethic wasn't there. I was doing the hours and all the rest of it, but I was resenting it a lot, really resenting it. The difference was you did it because you were scared of losing your job, and that fear factor was there. And that's changed a bit now. But it's hard, isn't it? Because I don't think we've ever found the true pathway, if you like. It either goes too far this way or too far that way. And the danger of it now, and I think this is a real concern, is we're not teaching people to survive. Kids, youngsters, even people our age and above, they're not being taught to survive and thrive in the world as it is. They're either trying to change the world because they think the world is unfair, right? Or, like you mentioned, our grandparents, they were living, a lot of the time, they were in completely, unjust situations where they weren't paid anywhere near enough, where the work ethic was great, but the return was terrible, and they accepted it. So it's finding that middle pathway. They
were saying yesterday within that particular podcast, and it was like there's the mind of in society that there's either you go and cut your own path and go and do it your own way, or there's your family are like, look, you need to go and get in a job and stay in a job and keep that stability and keep that safety. And there's again, they were saying in that podcast that when you're younger, you can afford to take a lot more risks. And take a few punts on things. As you get older, it becomes more about, if I do this, then I'm going to lose, X or whatever.
I've got a mortgage to pay.
The thing I think with a lot of this, we're talking here that life isn't fair and people blaming other people. It comes down to the old thing. I think if you sit there and you look internally, based on what I've just said there, say for instance you're in a job and you've got that safety there, but then when something goes wrong, you actually start looking internally, and then you realise maybe you're not quite where you want to be. That's a really, really difficult conversation to have.
Or you are at least in some way partially to blame for the situation.
It's much easier to sit there and push away and go, well, no, the reason that I'm like this is because of government. The reason that I'm like this is because of the pandemic. How am I supposed to make a success of myself in a pandemic? Whereas someone like you, someone like me, we sit there and go, well, the pandemic, okay, how can I turn this around? How can I make this into a success? How can I I'm in this situation, how can I make it better?
Yeah.
And then you know, in personal development, they always say, ask a rubbish question, you get a rubbish answer.
Yeah,
Why does it always happen to me? Because you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Is the answer that will come to you. Or how do I stop this from happening? How do I make this better? It's all about the internal talk and the questions that you ask yourself.
It is. I think we have to be really, really careful and clear here as well. There are people that are in situations where they have literally no control over it, and it did happen to them, and they're awful situations. Yes. And I'm saying that because people tend to think this is like a black or white thing. It's either totally personal responsibility or it's not. No, that's not true. Obviously, there are illnesses, diseases, life situations that happen that are just dreadful. But we're talking about that group of people in the middle where something dreadful hasn't happened to them, but the mindset mentality is blame other people.
If I'm being brutally honest, I'm talking about the people that it maybe those dreadful things have happened to them, but how are you interpreting it? I've got someone quite close to me who has had bladder cancer, has been incredibly ill. I mean, still, and now has to go in to have open heart surgery. His wife has had double mastectomy, had problems with the reconstructive surgery, had an aneurysm. And you know what? When you talk to them, the positivity that comes out of them is unbelievable. So matter of fact about everything. And it's that kind of thing that I'm talking about there. Like, they have every right to sit there and go, woe is me. I mean, I'm in a terrible situation. I'm ill. And when your health goes, I mean, that's probably one of the major things.
That's the thing that you just can't control to a degree.
But it's how are you interpreting it? And that's the thing. Life isn't fair. Life is horrible. And the thing is, what you've got to be good at is being comfortable when it does get horrible. It's when it does get horrible, how are you thinking about it? Are you letting it pin you down? Or are you turning it around and just going, okay, no worries, on to the next?
Well, that last point you just made there, I mean, there's 2 points. So the first one is, we're talking about those people in those awful situations that you mentioned. I have boundless respect for people like that. I genuinely do, because I know if I was in that situation, I could not handle it as well as they do. I admit that. There are two things that I cannot deal with, right? And funny enough, this is where I need to get better. It's both, because it always comes down to control. My nature is I need to control as many variables in my world as I can in terms of life, because that will allow me to chart the path. But what it doesn't give me is the flexibility to be as adaptable as I'd like to be in certain ways. So when for example, the one that you mentioned, health, I mean, I've had a few very minor health things over the years that when they've been diagnosed, they've always been, oh, that's quite minor, it's not a big deal. Don't get me wrong, it's not pleasant, but you're not going to go anywhere, right? But the bit before the diagnosis, where it could have been something worse, on a couple of occasions, and the doctor's like, well, we've got to check for this because of X. I'm like, okay, totally understand that. My brain goes into, I can't control the outcome of this test.
Panic.
Pieces, right? I just thought, I can't function. Whereas other people go, well, look, there's no point in worrying about it until we've got the results and we see what happens. And I buy that. The other one that I can't do, and I think, again, you've alluded to it there, is grief. Because you can't control losing someone. You have no control over that.
I mean, the way I personally haven't. I've lost people that were close to me, but not like it affected me, but it didn't seem to affect me that much. But I'm curious because quite recently, because of what's happened with family members and stuff like that, like mortality is there, and you suddenly start looking into those things and start questioning mortality, and you start looking at yourself and the people that are around you and start realizing, no, they're not always going to be here, which immediately kind of changes your whole viewpoint on things around people.
It changes
yourself, everything. You realise that there is a time limit. You realise that you're not here for forever. But when you were talking about the like when you get something that comes through and it spins you out. When my son's got a dicky heart, as you know, and had to go in for multiple operations, even open heart surgery. And when you're getting those things and you go through all of these periods of sitting there and thinking about the worst and all that kind of stuff, which the worst is death. The worst is he goes in there and he doesn't come out. And the line that me and my ex-partner came up with is hope for the best, prepare for the worst. There is no point in sitting there running those things over in your head. And a lot of people do this, not just in those situations, but just in life in general, running through the worst possible thing that can happen. You're going for a job interview and you're panicking because what if they ask this question and that? There's no point sitting there worrying your head about those things because they probably won't happen. And that's going back to the old personal development, what does fear stand for? False evidence appearing real.
Mate,
there is no point in wasting your mind space on that, because the chances are what you're thinking about is a lot worse than actually what's going to come out.
You're absolutely right. That is again, that's one of the things I was actually going to talk about. That is probably one of the best life skills that you can develop. And I'm definitely not there yet, and I keep working at it and trying to get there. But exactly that. Most of our like suffering and pain comes from things that either have happened and we cannot do anything about, or haven't happened, but we're creating them in our heads, right?
Yes.
There's a Stoic exercise. It's like when you visualize your negative future. It says you do it every night before you go to bed. And I don't, because I think that's quite depressing. But you sit there and you think through what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? And that way you're almost kind of like immunizing yourself against it. So that fear, that anxiety disappears because you've just ran it through your head so much every day. We're talking like the worst case extreme scenarios of life here, because if anything that happens that is not that, it is a good thing. Yeah, anything less than that horrible stuff is a good thing.
There's also the flip side of that. There's also the flip side of that, of what you think about comes to you, and I'm like, that's generally speaking, that's the complete opposite of what any personal development will tell you. Like you should expect the best.
You say that, but I mean, I like your line there. You know, that you and your partner came up with. I've said this for years as well. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and it will likely fall somewhere in the middle. Right, that's the way life falls. It's like penalties in a football season. Yeah, over a course of a season, everyone moans about one team or another, but they're always kind of there or thereabouts. Life tends to kind of fall in the middle bit. The other way of looking at this, and I think it ties all of this together really, really well, was something I heard the other day on another video, I think on YouTube, by some pretty wise guy, and he said, "Suffering is resistance to what is." Okay. Suffering is resistance to what is. So kind of like what we've spoken about. This is the way the world is right now. This has happened to me. From that point, once it's happened and it's moved forward, you can no more change what's happened than you can tell the sun to stop being there and to go there, or for the sun to be blue instead of yellow, right? So the mental effort, expenditure, stress, anxiety, all the rest that's putting on your body, everything is like trying to throw a punch at the wind. It's not going to do anything. It's pointless.
Do you know the way that I've flipped it, and in terms of the reframing technique, and it's when there's a lot of talk these days about anxiety and how I feel anxious, and different people having panic attacks and all that kind of stuff. But for me, when I'm feeling nervous, anxious, scared about something, the way that I flip that is that's good. Because the reason that I'm feeling that is probably because I'm going somewhere that I haven't been before. So therefore I'm growing as a person. So that's the whole thing. Anytime a situation comes up where, you know, it's different for different people, but I get like the knot in the stomach. And
I get it there. Yeah.
I immediately, the way that I reframe that is I'm then like, well, the reason you're feeling this is because you're growing. If you're going there, and I generally speaking, if I feel that, I just throw myself in it. It's like I feel like I'm on the diving board, kind of looking down, and I just go, all right, okay, go, and just jump off, because it's going to that's for me. It's going to add another layer. It's going to give me something. That's the thing, and I think that's, again, it's about mindset.
That's almost like exposure therapy, that, isn't it? And I know a lot of people have issues with that. But again, I was watching something else the other day, and the guy said that. He goes, the minute I realize I'm afraid of something, or, you know, I get that anxiety, he goes, just like you said, I will go and I will do it over and over and over and over and over again until that fear disappears. Yeah.
And exactly.
A friend of mine the other day, I was on Facebook, and we were talking about books or something. And he said the best book he never read was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. He goes, I've never read it.
I've read that.
Yeah, he goes, I've never read it. Because if I do, it might ruin what I think it means. He goes, well, I just look at it on the title alone and go, I'm scared of it, but screw it, I'm just going to do it because it's the best way to get it.
I've read it. It's actually a good book, but I read it years and years and years ago. But that a lot of people say to me, like, my confidence used to be shot to pieces, but I was very good at being able to hide it.
Yeah,
and kind of covered it with very good arrogance. But people used to turn around and say to me, "Yeah, but I'm not like you. Like, look at you. You're so confident." And certainly within a work environment, I was confident, because I said to someone the other day, I was like, confidence only comes when you prove to yourself that you can do it.
You can do it. Yeah, competence.
That's the thing.
Confidence.
When you do something you didn't think that you can do.
Yeah.
you then prove to yourself, you improve your own self-image. So confidence isn't something people go, oh, I just want to be more confident. Well, you're not just going to be more confident. You need to push yourself outside the comfort zone. And what I've done over the years in many different forms is put myself into really uncomfortable situations. A lot of the time flopped.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to do it because I know that one time that you actually go in there, it works. And that feeling that you get after it, and then all of a sudden the confidence goes up again. So then all of a sudden you go, well, if I can do that, maybe I can go and do that. Maybe I can go and do this. And then in the end, over time, you build your confidence up so much that you just sit there and go, well, that's it. I'm unbeatable. I just keep on going. What's the worst that can happen? I can lose. Well, if I lose, it doesn't matter anyway, because I just go again.
Well, that's it. That is exactly it, isn't it? I mean, there's been so many kind of good points in this conversation. I think we've actually kind of like jumped around a little bit, but it all comes down to the same thing, which is almost, you call it something like life optimization or something less crap, if you like. But it's about finding a way to thrive in an unfair world. And that's the hard thing to do. And I do think we've gone away from that a lot. So if I was to summarize this and go, if I could speak to my 18-year-old self, my 21-year-old self, even my 30-year-old self, and what would I say? I'd go, get used to this fact, accept this fact. Life is unfair. You can no more change that than you can change the color or the position of the sun just by pointing at it. The skill,
just accept it.
The skill though is going, how do I survive and thrive in an unfair and uncertain world? And that's the methodology in the toolkit that you need to develop. And I think we've become quite woeful at dealing with that, as in teaching that. I genuinely do. Whereas that's a problem, because that will come to bite us in the arse as a country, as a world, to carry on that way for a long period of time. If you're spending all of your time crumbling because the world isn't fair, all you do is you get one life. And if you spend 90% of that life hiding away because the world is unfair, that's not a life. That's not a life. It genuinely is.
What you think about all day long is who you are. If you think about negative stuff and you think about bad stuff all day long, then that's what your life is going to be. If you sit there and you focus on the positive and the happy and those kind of things, then that's what your life's going to be, because that's what you think about all the time. And that's the difference, I think, between not necessarily so much just, it depends on your definition of successful people. My definition of a successful person is someone that's genuinely happy. I don't care if you're a bin man and you love your job and you love your family life. That person is genuinely successful. But the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful person is exactly that. It's the mindset. Like, when life is unfair, do you view it as, oh, life's unfair, well, I'm just going to give up? Or is it, life's unfair, how do I make it better?
That's exactly it. I think if it's a weird scenario, because obviously it's a physical impossibility, but if the me of 10 years ago had turned 40, I'd be handling it and dealing with it incredibly differently, because the person I was back then was always look at, oh, time's running out. I haven't done all these things that I want to do, all the rest of it. The person that I am now goes, that is a fact.
I don't care. That's it.
No, it's fuck it. Sorry, life's over. That's a fact. You can't anymore become 25 again than you can change the color of the sun. But what you can do is make sure that for the next 20, 30, 40 years, however long I've got left on this planet, that they're the best years that I can make them. And the way that you do that is by getting used and thriving in an unfair and uncertain world. That's
exactly it. Because if you don't, it takes too much brain power to try and control everything. It takes too much brain power to sit there and think about all the neggy things all the time. It's a lot easier just when something goes wrong to just move on and just crack on. Sometimes it's not that easy. Don't get me wrong. We all we're not sitting here saying that we're infallible and we've got perfect mindset and everything. Far from it, actually. But what we can categorically say, and I know he can say it and I can, is if you look at us over the last 20 years or something, the way that our mindset has improved from then to now is vast. I mean, it is absolutely vast. The reason we're talking about this is because we were those people.
That's exactly it.
Life was unfair. I remember sitting at 19 years old and just saying, from that point onwards, I'm an adult now. Now this is how I'm going to take life. Anything that I do is down to me. And then about a year after that, life went to absolute shit, and it was one of the hardest things in the world because I couldn't blame anyone. I was just like, it's me. Oh no.
Yeah. But again, that's a spin-off for another day, isn't it? Because like the idea that how you go into life and how you go into the world and go, right, this is how I'm going to make it work, because you feel like you're equipped with this knowledge or this skill set. Very, very, very quickly, you become very aware of the fact that what you know and what you think you know is nowhere near enough to get you to be successful at life or get you to handle.
And it never will be.
No, it never will
be. But you've got to keep your eye on the prize. That's the thing for me, is I will never stop and I will keep on going. And it doesn't matter if I'm 70 years old, you know, if I don't make it within the next 5 years, 10 years or whatever, I'm never going to give up. I'm going to keep on going, because you've got to keep your eye on the prize. And as long as you've got that sort of end goal in mind, then you always know, what am I doing? Is what I'm doing today moving me closer towards or further away from my goal? If I'm sitting there and I'm being negative and I'm being down and I don't want to go anywhere or whatever, am I closer to my goal? Hell no.
Yeah, but you still have those days. But you still, we both had that, haven't we? Even since we started doing this channel. I think I remember there was one day you just went, oh, I can't be doing it today. You know, and you said my motivation's burnt out and all the rest of it. And then I think it was like a week later, I was exactly the same. That's being human. As long as you have more days that are on the positive side of the spectrum, not in terms of happy clappy, but in terms of I'm doing to move myself forward. As long as those days outnumber the neggy ones, your life will be better as a result of that. There's no doubt.
I think with those things, and the difference certainly with myself and the work that I put into myself, is those down days don't last for anywhere near as long as they used to.
No.
Like if I had a down day, and I would say probably depression, actually, it would last weeks.
Yeah.
It would like a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even a bit longer. Like maybe I'd be a bit all right, and then I'd take a dip again. Now it lasts a matter of days.
Yeah.
So I can have something really drastic and really bad that would last for a really long time, and now something hits me and it just bounces off, and you're like, okay, you go a bit down, and then you go, actually, no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've had a bit of luck now in terms of being made redundant has been reversed because of lovely Rishi Sunak doing the furlough extension. Brilliant. That saved a lot of jobs and it saved a lot of businesses. But the thing is, like, as you know, my categorically is I'm out of a job. Thankfully, that's now changed. But if that had happened to me again 10 years ago, I would have crumbled.
Oh, mate. If I was in this situation 10 years ago, I'd have been in bits. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then the thing is, we both know now that accomplishes nothing. Absolutely nothing.
But is it going to kill me? No.
No.
You know what I mean? That's the thing before.
10 years ago, if this had happened and we'd have been broken by it, that being broken by it would have added nothing positive to the situation. Not a damn thing.
I don't know for yourself though, do you think, because I think when you're a lot younger, when these kind of things happen, you feel that maybe that's the way that you should behave as well, because you're learning the way of the world. So if I remember when my girlfriend first split up with me when I was like about 13 or something like that. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I should be really upset. I wasn't overly bothered, but just walked around like acting like that. You know what I mean? Like it was
I think
the way I should be.
I think you're just a nutter, mate.
Like with these, you know that if you lost a job or something like that, that you should be upset and you should be worried about things, and therefore you think, oh, because this has happened, this is how I should behave. And then now I've kind of realised, well, actually, no, that's not how you should behave. And that when I was a lot younger, I think I allowed those kind of things of the way that other people were acting or the way that you've seen people act before, and you kind of try and emulate that, if anything. And you think, oh, this bad thing's happened. Like those people, when that happens, this is how they act. And you've kind of copied them, and it's taken a few years now where you actually look at it and go, nah.
Well, maybe the way that those other people and we behaved is the natural. I think that is the natural way of behaving, i.e., the falling to pieces, the being broken, all the rest of it. I do think that's the natural way of behaving, because just because something's natural doesn't mean it's good. Right. Well, let's face it. We both know this. Our brains are a hodgepodge of different evolutionary systems built one on top of the other until we are where we are. Which means the way that we respond to threats, i.e., losing your job, being broken up with all the rest of it, would have suited us when we were on the savannah X amount of years ago. But now that we're here, that doesn't serve the purpose that it should be serving.
It is unnatural for you to go against the grain. It is unnatural to expel unnecessary energy. It is unnatural for a human to take the hardest route. Because the thing is, when you were back being a caveman, if you were sitting there and you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, you're not going to expend energy going to do something in case you didn't eat again. So it's natural for us. When people say we're lazy, no, actually what we're being is efficient. That's what we're trying to be. But the difference is now you're being efficient. You're not burning anything anymore. You just become overweight, you know, and it really delays it. But back in the day, that was efficient use of energy. Like, you only expended energy when you absolutely had to, when you went hunting, when you went gathering and stuff like that. But in this day and age, people are using their energy efficiently, but it's, you know, it's not the way. You have to go against the grain now, and you have to push yourself. You have to go to the gym, even though it hurts and it's not a nice place to go. You have to go and put yourself in a situation that makes you nervous and you're a bit scared of and stuff. And it's very unnatural for us to do. That's the thing, really.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. This is the thing, isn't it? We somehow, as a species, you know, we're still trying to find our way. That's the thing, because technology is moving faster than obviously our bodies, our minds adapt to it by a country mile. So when you've got all these life luxuries and all the rest of it, and we're still running on these antiquated primal responses, the behavior and the situation isn't always going to match. It's going to go wrong a lot of the time. That's where I do think there's a need now. Going back to the original point of this whole episode, there is a need now where people need to be taught, or they need to self-learn how to thrive and accept that life is unfair and uncertain. Because Bruce Lee used to have his saying was, you know, be like water. That was his whole point in combat style. Be like water. It's the same thing with this. If you're rigid, you're not going to be able to go with the waves of life, because it's not the way the world should be. But if you are like water, you can go with the waves of life and you can adapt to it. Because we're not saying be happy when bad shit happens. Absolutely not. But what we're saying is, that has happened. You can't change it. It's all about your response now. It's all about your response.
Yeah. And exactly that. I think within these things, it's all well and good talking about that, but there's a certain type of person that can take this on board and go and do it themselves. I think that I've been very lucky that I view the adversity in the way that I do, because not a lot of people, and that's something that I've taught myself. It's not something that other people have taught me. I've just, rewired my brain and gone, right, okay, but this bad thing has happened. How can I stop that from happening? How can I make it better? But I think with some people out there, they don't know how to do that. They're not naturally wired that way. And then it's almost, you need like a role model to be able to take you into that. And I know personally that there's certain situations that I wouldn't have been able to break myself out of, and I've had to have external input from old managers, from cognitive hypnotherapists and stuff like that, in order to make those changes. So I think it's sometimes you do need a third party to. And I always use the adage, like, if you are, and like we said before, some people aren't wired like this, but most people do actually want to change. They just either don't know how or fear it. But it's like when you go to the gym and someone spots you on the bench press, they sit there and all they do is they put two fingers underneath the bar. They're not even holding the bar. And then somehow you get another 3 repetitions out of it. And I think that's a great analogy in terms of life as well, because sometimes you're sitting there and, you're not pushing yourself as hard as you should do. But if you had someone there with you holding your hand, maybe they'd get those extra 3 reps. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
That is exactly right. And there's a really, oh my God, so you'll love this. I don't know if you've ever seen the video, but that's a brilliant example of almost like how things should go. We should pick each other up and push people forward. That's what we should do. I remember seeing a video, I think it was last year. Yeah, it must have been last year. And it was the Democratic Socialists of America convention, right? And oh my God. I mean, obviously it was made into massive parody videos because people were just like, this can't be real, but it was real. And they just took snippets from this convention. And there's a lady at the front, and I think she's kind of like chairing the convention or whatever it is. And it almost felt like every so often or quite regularly, someone would go, point of order, no, you can't, please don't use this word because this word is triggering for me, right? And so this person would sit down, and then someone else would go, hang on a minute, don't you mean all people rather than you people? Or just, I'm exaggerating, but it was like, it was like the level of, don't do this because it hurts me. Don't do this because it hurts me. Don't do this because it triggers me. And it went up and up and up and up and up. And I just sat there and I was watching this and I thought, how is what you are doing making you more effective at life, right?
Or saying to them, don't do this because you're triggering me. Well, how are you stopping from the trigger going off?
Exactly. Exactly. So then you had all of these people with these things coming out and going, you shouldn't do this because it's upsetting. You shouldn't do this because it's offensive. And all I could think was, when you leave that room, that safe bubble of a room, all you've done is reinforce each other to be weaker when you hit the world outside. how you're not lifting people up, you're not making life better, you're not making it easier for people, you're making it harder. Because just like you can't change the position of the sun, you can't change everyone else outside around you as well. What are you doing? This is the whole thing. The mentoring thing.
Isn't it very, very key that those people were all around each other, because the saying of like attracts like is very, very true, and it does, because there are certain in one of the jobs I worked in previously, they used to talk about like dream stealers. And they were saying that the dream stealers can come in any form. It could be someone really close to you. It could be your friends. It could be your family. And they said that if you're going to be a success, and say, for instance, you go and do something and you earn a lot of money, and you come from a family that doesn't have a lot of money, you can have those people in the family that don't like that, because you've taken away their excuses. Or if you're going to do something which means that you're going to break away from people. So say, for instance, you and your friends are very overweight, and then all of a sudden you start losing a huge amount of weight, and they're like, oh, you can't do that. I don't even know why you bother with that. And it's because if you lost that weight, you take away their excuse. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely right. If one person can do it, anyone can do it. But they're like, oh, right, okay, that's difficult. It's such a bizarre thing, but we've now entered this world where these aren't my words. I can't remember who it was who said it. Someone a lot smarter than me, but they said victimization is now a currency, right? So if you can go, like, here's my currency card, oh right, so this gets you X points, this gets you X points, whatever. And there's going to be a lot of people that watch this video, and they're going to probably be really pissed off of us, because they're going to go, well, you can't say that, you can't do this. To those people, I would just say this thing. At the end of the day, no matter what cards we are dealt, you've got two choices. You either crumble, or you try and find the best way of playing them. It doesn't matter whether it's deserved or undeserved, just or unjust. It doesn't matter whether you're a good person or a bad person. It doesn't matter about anything, any factor that part of your identity. All of that, ultimately, when it comes down to a decision you've got to make, is irrelevant, because there are two decisions. You beat you and you crumble, or you try and make it better. That is it. There is nothing. It's that is almost physics, because it's what are your actions going to be there. It's
not the cards that you're dealt, it's how you play the cards, and that's it. And that is basically it. And people can sit there and they can be offended by this, but this is the other thing with this is it's an opinion.
It's words.
That is all it is. We are not quoting this as facts. We are saying that Jamie is really old now, and these are some of the thoughts that he's got from being really old. If you're offended by it, well, you're probably one of those people that sits there and blames everything else, because you're blaming us. So if you are offended by it, you're probably one of the people that we are talking about, and actually you probably should flip things on your head. So on its head, sorry.
Mate, and I can say with like hand on heart, you're right. This is an opinion, and I can say with an absolute hand on heart. You know me. I will always look internally now before I look externally if something goes wrong. Every single time, to the point where in my 20s I probably was too far the other way, where I blame myself for things that weren't my fault because I had no confidence. So it is finding that balance. But if I could get in the TARDIS, for the Doctor Who fans out there, jump in a time machine, jump back and if I could put that understanding in younger me. Can I say with absolute certainty that I would be more successful than I am now? 100%. Because I wasted so many years, so much time in thinking the world is unfair and not dealing with it in the
way. Do you know what? I would while you were saying that, I was actually sitting there and thinking, like, if I got in the time machine and I went back and I spoke to myself, would you be better? Yes, categorically. If I'd followed those rules and got to now and followed what I know now, I would be a lot better. But do you know what? I honestly think wasn't ready for it. And I think that's probably true. I think even if I went and told myself these things now and said, I'd still carry on regardless. I would have still carried on with it, because I just wasn't ready for those kind of facts. Like, to sit there and go, just stop worrying about things. Like, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? Everything's all right. There's going to be a lot of shit that you're going to get, but just take it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be better in the end. Your life will get better. But I'm not quite sure whether or not I would, younger me would have taken it on. I really
Probably not, because when you're young, sometimes you can be arrogant. You can be so overwhelmingly self-assured in the sense that you think you know the truth, and you look at all the generations that came before you and go, well, they didn't know as much as I know, or they don't know the world as I know it. When you look at it like that, how ignorant and arrogant was I to think like that?
The funny thing is, you're saying that, and I remember being sort of, I remember being a teenager and looking at parents and just thinking, like, you're so old. and out of touch. And now I look at like my 15-year-old stepdaughter, and I go and talk to her, and she looks at me in exactly the same way.
The circle of life carries on.
I'm not old. Like I'm such I'm so young as I see it. Like I'm still listening to like recent music and stuff like that. And I think I'm quite cool. Like, and then like she's just like, no, you're really not.
No,
like, you're not down with it. And then starts coming in and talking about TikTok and all this kind of stuff. And I see them all doing all these dances, and I'm like, mate, like start hearing some of the language that comes out as well when they're like bringing in these new words, and you're just like yeah, maybe I am old.
No, I think it's not a question of maybe we are. We are old.
We are old. Yeah.
But that's the other thing, isn't it? When you get older, you
You are. I'm not really that old. You're like probably at the halfway mark. You're definitely at like midlife. I mean, I don't see you going past 80. Really, I think you're there.
No, but to be fair, it's not. I don't think it's. We've always said this as well, isn't it? It's not how long you live. There's no point in living to 88 if you're you're in a horrible situation. But then if you pop your clogs at 70, or 75, but you've had a fantastic life and you've kept your health till the end, amazing. You know, that is it, isn't it? Like people, I don't know. You can keep getting better at everything until the end. That is what you can do. But the final, the thing I think I'd want to end this on, because we spoke a lot about, reaching for your destination, your goal, and all that. I think it's true. There's a great fiction writer called Brandon Sanderson, and one of the quotes he came up with in his books is "journey before destination." Right, journey before destination. Don't focus so much on the destination you miss the here and now. The Jamie in his 20s and a lot of his 30s. Definitely, that was me in a nutshell. I'll be happy when, if, then this. That thinking, living in the moment was something I've always been notoriously bad at. Like, really, don't get me wrong, I've had great fun. I've done all the things I wanted to do, and a lot of things I wanted to do. But it's always been, that next bit, rather than going, sit where you are, count your blessings, think how lucky you are, because it's amazing,
Well, do you know what? To finish up, and that's something that I learned because I've always chased money and always had my eye on the prize. And when I was at one of the companies and I won the £10,000 prize, it was the first time really, I think, in my life that I had really got my nut down. I mean, proper grafted for something and went for it, went hammer and tongs. And I got it. And then, do you know what? When I got it, I was like, is that it? But it was such an anticlimax. And then what I actually realised, and when you're talking about journey before destination, is I really enjoyed the lead up to it. I liked the work. I liked the graft. I became so obsessed with it. Like literally, when I woke up in the morning, it was the only thing I thought about. I worked all the way through. When I came home, it was the only thing I spoke about. And that working and the drive throughout the whole thing, it's fantastic. And when I actually got to the end of it, as I said, massive anticlimax. But actually what I realised again is it was the journey that I actually enjoyed. And now the thing that I've realised is I set goals and sometimes I don't achieve them. When I was boxing, I set my goal to get down to a 6-pack, right? I mean, I've never had a 6-pack in my life, but I ended up dropping 2 stone on the journey to that. I didn't end up with a 6-pack, but do you know what I ended up getting from it? I got stripped. I learned a new thing, and like even though I didn't get to the goal, the whole journey was still worth it. And that's the thing I think people are missing. Even if you're setting goals and you're not getting to them, don't beat yourself up because you're not getting to the goals. It was actually the journey. What you learned on the way to get into it. Sometimes
the goal isn't what you actually want at the end of it. No. I remember when I was training to be a therapist. It took a year, and the idea in my head was I wanted to be a successful therapist. I wanted to be earning X amount of per hour. And I realized after a while of doing it, I was like, I actually really don't enjoy doing this. And that was the thing. Because basically, and it sounds really weird, because I'm a massive advocate for therapy and getting your head right. I'm a massive advocate for it. I think I've seen it change people's lives, basically. Like literally, they'll go from being person A to person B. It's an amazing thing to see. But then I realized I'm doing it. I was like, for my personality trait, funnily enough, I can't have a job where I'm just sitting there listening to someone moan. And that's kind of, to a degree, that is kind of what therapy is. You're helping them move past that. But then when I became a trainer and I combined that with something else, i.e. traditional kind of sales, persuasion skills, etc., I found myself, I loved the journey at that point. That's the thing. So don't get so bogged down in this is the end goal, this must stay the same. No, it's almost like you'll find the journey and you'll appreciate and you'll love the journey if you find the right thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think. But a lot of people when goal setting is explained, the goal is the be all and end all, and then like it's like, for instance, weight loss. You know, I want to lose weight, and it's like, well, actually, if you change it a little bit, and rather than focusing on the weight that you're losing, go and do something that you enjoy. You know, some people go and do like a Zumba, or some people go and do like I did with boxing or whatever. But I learned something, and by default, through doing that, then I ended up losing weight.
The weight,
And that's the thing. And I think people get so bogged down because then as they're going through their journey, you know, maybe they slip. And then they go and they start eating, and then after that, like, oh, that's it.
It's over. I've ruined that 6 months. It's gone now.
And it's like, well, no, actually, you're allowed to slip. It's normal to slip.
That is exactly it.
It's really difficult sometimes to stay on the track. And someone said to me a long time ago is that when you are going for a goal, you will be tested along the way to see how much you want it. And that life will throw things in your path to see how much you want it. And the thing is, if you look at it like that, so this is my goal, and then actually something's come along, and then something happens in your family, maybe something bad happens at work, maybe you slip, and like if we're talking a dieting context, that you're going out with your friends and you're going to go out for a Chinese, or you know, those kind of things, you're going to have these tests thrown in your path to see how much you actually want it. And if you slip and you don't carry on with it, then of course life's tested you, and that's it. You didn't really want it that much. You know what I mean? No, that mate, 100%. It's not, again, that comes down, that's the unfair and the uncertain world thing. You know, the idea that it's going to be smooth sailing is ridiculous, but that's why it's really not. And how do I say, it's, again, it all comes back to that same point. It's about your skill set, your mindset, your ability, all these things, because it's not about having an endlessly perfect road. It's being able to adapt and it's being able to surf the waves when they hit you. Do you know what you just said there is skill set and things like that. I think that, if I'm being brutally honest, there are people out there that have had less skills than I have. There are people out there that have come from more unfortunate backgrounds than you and I. And I think the most important thing out of all of that, and the thing that separates the wheat from the chaff, is mindset. Yeah, mindset. 100%. You can have someone, if there is someone with like dogged determination. We watched Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith the other day. And that guy, I mean, Christ.
I know, I've seen it.
Everything thrown in his path, but just wouldn't give up. And that's the thing. I think if you've got that dogged determination inside you, and you've got that mindset of whatever's thrown in my path, I'm going to keep on going, nothing will be able to stop you. And I don't care if you're dyslexic, I don't care if there's a disability, I don't care anything like that, because there are multiple examples of all of those things out there. People with disabilities that are now achieving amazing things. You look at people like Richard Branson, who is also dyslexic, you know, multi-billionaire, like, you know, all of these things that are out there. I think the bottom line with this, mindset will literally take over absolutely everything. You can be the most skilled, most intelligent, you know, best person out there, but if your mindset isn't right, you're not going anywhere. Yeah, that's exactly it. And there'll be a lot of people watching this right now, and mate, honestly, this is still one of the things where I'm still working at it, because despite the improvements I feel I've made over the last 20 years, again, I don't think I'm exactly where I want to be in terms of my mindset. I'd say I'm probably 60% of the way there, and I've just pulled that figure arbitrarily, you know, out of like. But there's always bits of my nature and bits of my personality. I think I can't get this right. I need some help, and that's where I'm now looking at different areas to see where they can fix that. And it's something that's so simple. I read in this book the other day. It's about it's a book about basically Alfred Adler's form of psychology. And he said personality, in Adlerian psychology, we don't call it personality, because we call it lifestyle, right? He goes, if lifestyle is bad, what do? You change your lifestyle. So if your lifestyle is, I'm lacking in confidence, I can't do this, you know, that, goes, change your lifestyle, as in become that person who can do those things. And it's overwhelmingly simple, but just imagine if that's what it was like. You took off that jumper of I can't one day, and you put on the jumper of this is the person I want to be the next day, and you could just try that. That is what it is. Like when you sit there and you, I think it's Tony Robbins, and he sits there and he's like, everyone's got this notion that change is slow. And change takes a long time to happen. So, but then he was like, how many times have you've been in a bad mood, or maybe you've been in a bad mood for like a couple of days, and then something happens and you just burst out laughing.
Yeah.
And that mood is completely gone. Like, change can happen overnight, but everyone's got this notion that it's really hard to change and all that. And don't get me wrong, it can be really hard to change, but it also can happen in an instant.
Totally agree.
And if that feeling was out there, people would change like that a lot more. But generally speaking, everyone's like, oh, it's hard to change. It takes time to change. And I don't know why that is, or what the internal structures in the brain that stop that. But why does it take an external source to be able to get you to change like that? But I don't think it does. I think you can do it yourself. But people.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. So but then this is the thing. I think you have to have, when that happens, you have to have a flash of realization about something. Okay. So there are two examples that spring to mind. So people who previously weren't religion, and then they find God, right? And that's quick. There's a story of a guy, I can't remember who it was, sportsman or athlete or something, I can't remember, but he is very successful at what he did, but he had like drink, drugs, all the rest of it. And then his wife was telling the story where he goes, he went up to bed one day and then he came down the next morning. She goes, my husband was a different man, because somehow during that night he had given himself to God, and that had kind of like changed everything. And I was like, I'm not religious, so obviously that wouldn't happen with me. But then you've got who is it? Like, I think it's Eckhart Tolle who wrote the book The Power of Now. For him, he goes, this happened to me overnight and I was a different person. Peter Scott, this guy that I've just recently started following, he said that he went through a breakup, and there was a moment when he was in his suffering of his breakup where he suddenly went, hang on a minute, why am I doing this? And then he said this opened this door of like possibility in his head, and it changed the way he looked at the world. And now he's out there 20 years later changing life.
I suppose when you're looking at it like that, if you put it in relationship context, like people that are in abusive relationships and stuff, and then it's almost one day and they say like, it just snaps, that's it, it just bang, that's it, and then you make the decision. I think that's the thing. Like when we're talking about this of life's unfair and all that kind of stuff, if you think life's unfair, life is unfair. But as we keep on coming back to, it's how you're actually viewing it. But then if it's the realization that if you do, one day you'll come down and go, that's it, I make the decision, I'm not going to think like that anymore. But it's no one, we can sit here and we can wax lyrical about it. No one telling you is about this kind of stuff is going to make the difference. Maybe something will inspire you, but it'll be something internal within yourself that switches, and then you go. But some people will never have that. Some people don't want to. Some people aren't open to it. But that's the thing that we've got to look at. And I think we've gone on a hell of a lot longer than we
considering we set ourselves a 15-minute time limit. I think we've probably been going about 40 minutes or so now.
The funny thing is with this is, like, when we're sitting there, whether or not other people are actually interested in this thing, it will be very interesting to see, actually. But this kind of conversation is just generally how me and Jamie talk. When we said in the descriptions and stuff we put on social media and on YouTube, when we say that we put the world to rights and we sit there and we discuss things, this is the kind of thing that we do. We have a mass debate.
That is exactly it. We hope people have got some value from this. And the thing is, when I watch this back, I'll look at it and go, oh my God, that we could have done a whole episode on that one point. We could do a whole episode on that point. But that's what we're going to build up over a period of time as a portfolio of useful videos. But this is the stuff, isn't it? Well, we jokingly call this, wisdom-ish for everyday people. It's not because it's not stuff that we don't believe. That's it. It's stuff that we believe.
This is all honest stuff. This is completely like what we're talking about here, and what we're discussing in front of you guys. It's like we said before, we've been doing this for years. We've been talking about this crap for years. It's just we decided to put it on YouTube and get paid for it. But we're not putting on any airs and graces. We're not bringing anything out that we don't think. Like, these are conversations that are just genuine conversations and genuine beliefs in it. Hopefully people are interested in it. Again, always put the comments below and let us know. Are there topics within what we've spoken about that you want us to go in a little bit more on? Are there things that maybe we haven't discussed that you'd like us to discuss? What are your experiences? Just let us know. I mean, at the moment we're producing content based on what we want to talk about, what comes in our mind. hashtag winging it. But give us a bit of direction. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Is it are you bored to tears by what we've just gone through? Do you actually quite like it? Are you even still watching at this point?
Have you subscribed now because of this? Yeah.
But yeah, just let us know. As always, we've got the little subscribe button in the corner. If you don't subscribe, we don't survive. Yeah, we know where it is now. We're professional YouTubers.
Yeah, but Andy, you're pointing to your bottom right, aren't you?
Oh, no, I told you we're professional YouTubers. I know exactly what I'm doing. It's somewhere here. It's
one of these.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, follow us. Let us know your thoughts. This is quite a lengthy one, so maybe it gets split. I don't know, or maybe we just put it out there and see if people can be asked to watch us for 40 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that was for us, that was our normal chat. This is the kind of stuff we always talk about, the stuff we always kind of cover. Let us know what you think about it. It was less of a silly, laughy, jokey one, and actually more of a serious discussion for once.
See how it goes.
Yeah. Other than that, remember, follow us on Jamie at Jamie and the Bird, the Insta, the Facebook, the Twitter. He is Jamie, and he is very old now. He is 40 and nearly dead. I'm not as old as that, but
still nearly dead.
But Jamie looks younger. But other than that, I think we've literally put the world to rights.
We have. I think we're good.
Great stuff. Well, other than that, thanks for watching, guys. Big up your chest. Remember to follow, watch everything else, and just subscribe and make us loads of money. Later.
Take care.